Good evening. Today we are leaving the dreamland and entering into action. The collective is awakening from the fog and reclaiming individuality. I'm of course talking about Neptune and the transit that we've been in / are going into, where it is leaving the sign of Pisces and moving into Aries after being in Pisces for about 14 years. As I'm currently filming this video, Neptune is at 29 degrees Pisces and is retrograding backwards. Neptune first went into the sign of Aries earlier this year, 2025, in March, on March 30th. And it spent some brief time there before retrograding back into Pisces more recently on October 22nd. It will remain in Pisces until January of 2026, when it's going to go back into Aries until the year 2039. Neptune will not return to Pisces for another 154 years. So in this video, I'd like to talk about how I think this transit has affected us more in the United States, as I'm going to be talking about cultural patterns here and how Neptune and Aries might change us as well. So what is Neptune associated with in a society? Well, since Neptune moves slowly, it is called a generational planet, which means its changes tend to follow more long-term themes and trends. The things Neptune affects in a generation is fashion and marketing, what we glamorize, such as movies, celebrities, and popular entertainment, collective dreams and yearnings for extraordinary experiences, and mystical aspirations. Neptune in Pisces is associated with spirituality, illusions, falsity, mysticism, art, the abstract, artistic endeavors such as dancing or photography, and painting. Drugs and substances, conspiracies, religious delusions, and fanaticism. There's always like an infinite amount of things that a planet or a sign can be associated with, but those are just some of the things that we're going to talk about in this video. Aries energy is ruled by the planet Mars, which is the god of war. This is much different than Pisces, who is ruled by Jupiter and Neptune. Aries energy is direct, passionate, and intense. They're the first sign and a cardinal sign, and so they like to start shit. Aries typically represents the new beginning of a major cycle, since it is the beginning of the zodiac. Cardinal signs start each season in the year. So Aries starts spring, Cancer starts summer, Libra starts fall, and Capricorn starts winter. Aries is physical activity, adrenaline, adventures, fires, the military, and soldiers. It is taking action and it is independent. It is the creative spark and the spiritual spark that ignites anything and everything. It is passion and new ideas. When a planet changes signs, the energy changes and it's going to cause cultural and societal shifts. But the changes might not be as obvious initially. It's something that typically makes more sense when you look back and reflect upon it. Fashion is very important as it symbolizes and connects with cultural patterns. In more recent years, I feel like fashion has become very dynamic in that you can wear any type of style from any time period, and it's kind of considered to work. You know, not a lot of people are looking like, oh wow, that's so out of place. It's just kind of accepted now. You see people who walk around in vintage clothes from 50s, 60s, 70s, or at least inspired from that style, or, you know, Y2K. And these cultural revivals are often motivated by nostalgia. Neptune in Pisces has seemingly broken the boundaries for what is considered in style, which is very Pisces coded to not have any boundaries. Not in like a bad way, just that Pisces is typically like very kind of infinite and like hard to define and put a structure to. With the shift of Neptune into Aries, we may see a rise of more Martian themes in fashion. Mars relates to exercise, so I wonder if athleisure will be showcased more to encourage exercising daily or multiple times, or to be like always ready to hit a class. This is definitely something that is already present in like more health conscious cities, like I think California or places like that. Maybe strength training will become more of a popular beauty standard. Right now it seems we are in the revival of heroin chic That was popular in the 90s, and we can thank Ozempic for that, or other GLP-1s, where skinny seems to be back in. So hopefully, I think that would be a more positive shift to focus more on just gaining more muscle. Not necessarily for aesthetics, but for functionality and for our own health. The more muscle mass you have, the easier it is to age and live longer and better life, and have a better life in general. I remember seeing a video of a woman who was very thin in her 30s, but she ended up getting type 2 diabetes because she just didn't have enough muscle mass. And it's like, even though she has a low body fat percentage, it's just that muscle mass and lack of it will cause health issues. Neptune and Aries could also influence fashion to have a more edgier or tougher look, like leather or something. We had a big shift in fashion culture with the Pluto in Scorpio generation, which is mainly millennials, and they kind of popularized wearing black and the tattoos, and they were teenagers doing the whole emo thing going on. So kind of similar to that is what I'm thinking, because they're both, Scorpio and Aries are both associated with Mars. So Mars, again, being the god of war, to me says kind of more of a tough look. Or it could be interpreted as embracing a more individualized approach to dressing, as Aries is a very independent energy. Aries is associated with the head, so maybe more face tattoos or piercings, or more of a unique individualistic approach and striking style, especially relating to the head. Maybe extreme hairstyles or things that are just more striking. I do think face tattoos have gotten a little bit more popular. More, I think, if you're like an artist, or like I see sometimes women getting face tattoos who are really feminine, and then it's like making them more feminine looking, like having these cute little face tattoos. Perhaps having more tactical or functional type of clothing will become more popular, like they have in the military. No more tiny purses. Hopefully this won't be because we actually have like an apocalypse going on and like we need this tactical gear. But yeah, maybe that will become popular just to be more functional. Celebrities and influencers have been heavily glamorized for a while for posting their extravagance online. Their expensive cars, houses, and vacations. It seems the tide is shifting a little bit, and I think it will continue to shift with that. That type of content isn't as well received as it used to be, especially because it can come off very tone deaf and out of touch when more and more people are struggling to survive. There are a lot of like wars and famine going on, and I think there's always been war and famine going on somewhere, but now it's like heavily documented and in your face with the connection of technology. There has been more of a push towards wealthy, especially billionaires, to do something for the collective of people instead of just hoard money and spend it on themselves. I just saw Billie Eilish. I don't know why she got an award, but she got an award. I think she donated money. And she literally said in the speech, you know, there are people in this room who make way more money than me, and you should be donating it. And that's, that's really the environment. I'm seeing that so much now, of a lot of people speaking up about that and criticizing celebrities who aren't doing that. Eat the rich has become popular again, which was initially coined by the political philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau during the French Revolution. A lot of influencers have tried to replicate this extreme display of wealth online, but a lot of times it's not authentic. People are posting about being on private planes or expensive vacations, houses, and cars when really they have places where you can go to and take a photo shoot in a private plane and make it look like that you're actually traveling on a private jet. Or people rent houses and cars and film it and make it seem like they live there, and it's just a lie. They pretend to live these lavish lifestyles, but it is too all an illusion, which is very Pisces coded. With the shift of Neptune into Aries, I think there is going to be more of an interest in authentic content creation and individuality. People will be showcasing more of their talents and skills online, and I think it'll become more common for people to have a larger following. And there can also be this shift of like, well, if everybody's internet famous now, if everybody has followers, like, then who's actually famous anymore? I saw part of a YouTube video that said that they think that YouTube will actually be more influential than television within the next 5 to 10 years, as it is showcasing more of an individual without the same restrictions as a TV show or a network. This was also mentioned when I saw people talking a lot about Pluto moving into Aquarius, and that happened back in November of 2024. Aries is also associated with leaders, and so there may be a shift of glamorizing people that are actually trying to create great change in the world, especially at a time where there is such brewing tension. More and more famous people and content creators are being called out for not using their platform of power and influence in order to try and make the world a better place and stand for something. It was common for a long time for people to kind of stick to not speaking about controversial things in order to be well liked by more of society. You don't want to speak about politics because you want everyone to like you. You don't want to get on anybody's bad side. Well, I don't think that's working anymore. And I think that really does highlight how we are in such a pivotal time in history, where if you're an artist or a public figure and you aren't speaking up about those issues, then you're going to lose the attention of the audience. The illusions of Neptune and Pisces are being dropped. The dreamy idealization that we've had with famous people has shifted, and that's probably for the better. Celebrities are people just like us, and they shouldn't be put on pedestals. I think we can also expect more of a rise in independent journalists instead of the mainstream media, especially since a lot of billionaires own all of the news networks, or most of them, some of which are owning more than one. If the wealthiest people control most of the media, then they get to see what they want us to see and exclude what they don't want us to see. This will lead to more independent news sources. In fact, it's already started. There definitely are people on here who are doing that. Another example of this shift I've seen is in the makeup industry. A lot of celebrity associated makeup brands are now getting attention due to their personal and sentimental connection that they have with the audience. Some examples are Fenty Beauty, which is Rihanna, Rhode Beauty, which is Hailey Bieber, Rare Beauty, which is Selena Gomez, and House Labs, which is Miss Lady Gaga. They all have great stories and connections to their fans and sharing the content that's very personal to them and how they connect with makeup and what it's done for them in their life. And so I've also seen that the Gen Z really prefer that type of content as well. Neptune and Aries could also manifest as glamorizing athletes more, as Aries is associated with movement and exercise. There could also be a rise in desire for adventures instead of simply relaxing, such as mountain climbing or snowboarding, instead of going to the beach or the pool or the cruises. Aries is also associated with surgeries, and of course technology is getting better and better every year. I wonder if we will see more surgeries related to functionality instead of aesthetics. There are people already putting chips in their hands in order to pay for stuff or as a open their door kind of lock thing. And putting microchips in your brain is in the beginning stages and currently in clinical trials for people with paralysis. The goal is to see if they can control devices with their mind by the electrical impulses in their brain. I think Musk is doing something too with that, but I don't know what his goals are. But I know medically that's what they're trying to do for that. This is indeed a controversial development. As with any advancement of technology, there is the ability to help people, but also to harm them. This also correlates with Aries being associated with the head. I'm sure during this time there will be advancements of all types of surgeries and head surgeries, especially now with the help of AI, robotics, and 3D printing. When we had Neptune in Pisces, we saw a big rise in Neptunian themes. We have had a major increase in spirituality into the mainstream, and a lot of people have taken to capitalizing on that. Manifesting, spiritual wellness, meditation, crystals, and astrological signs are very popular in the United States and are now used in a lot of selling points to make money. There has also been a lot of collective spiritual awakenings that I've seen, and that is reflected in the increase of spiritual content that I've seen. Obviously, algorithms are going to algorithm, but I feel like there's a lot more than I used to see. In the darker side of Neptune, there has also been a big increase during this time of more drug-related deaths. There's been a slight decrease in the last couple years, but it's still much higher than it used to be. Fentanyl became more popular on the streets in 2013, which was 2 years after Neptune first entered Pisces. In 2011, the drug-related deaths were around 40,000 per year. By 2022, it peaked at about 105,000. In 2023, it went down a little bit to 103,000. There has also been a rise in drug use and acceptance and popularity, where there are advertised retreats where you can go and do ayahuasca all over the world. During this time, we also saw a lot of states either decriminalizing or legalizing the sale of marijuana. Some states have even decriminalized small amounts of all drugs, or now we have a rise in therapies where they're using psychedelics or ketamine to help anxiety, depression, PTSD. So I think that's very interesting that these went from like highly illegal drugs to now they're seeing some therapeutic benefits of these types of drugs. There is a psychiatrist I've been watching on YouTube. His name's Dr. Yosef. He has been discussing how he feels a lot of people are over-medicated for psychological issues, and some are prescribed drugs that actually have harmful long-term side effects that are not disclosed by the psychiatrist or even considered to be a deciding factor. You know, they're prescribing these medications without saying like, oh, actually, this could actually happen. He says that antipsychotics are often prescribed for schizophrenic patients or bipolar, and sometimes for Tourette's or depression. But there is evidence that it causes a reduction in white matter, which is important for brain function. And I guess a lot of psychiatrists don't mention that or possibly overlook it completely. But it can cause irreversible damage. I think a lot of people being over-medicated can be the darker side of Neptune and Pisces. There is a lot of social, economical, and humanitarian issues going on in the world right now, and I think it's fairly normal to be depressed and anxious in response to such intense disasters. Unfortunately, the response from society and the medical field has been to prescribe more and more medication instead of restructuring the faulty systems that got us here to begin with. Delusion is also associated with Pisces and Neptune, and there has definitely been a big increase in collective delusion at this time. I just watched a video about how people are getting really attached to ChatGPT, AI systems, and because they're responding nicely to them, like they're supportive or agreeable, that they're like developing these emotional connections with them, and they're going into psychosis. And sometimes the AI will say really messed up things, or it'll just get really weird. And I just saw a video of someone speaking about this who is in the AI industry. I forget what company he works for. I don't know. And he was saying, well, I mean, that's kind of how we test these AI things, is we release it to the public and we see what doesn't work and then we tweak it. And it's like, okay, guinea pigs. Also, with the rise of AI, we have the rise of extreme misinformation. A lot of times it's hard to distinguish what is real or fake on the internet. Russia has been creating fake propaganda for a while to influence people all over the world, and it's getting harder to decipher when they mimic actual news programs. Some people have been saying World War III is already going on and that it's a spiritual war, but also a war of misinformation, propaganda, delusion, and psychological warfare. They purposely create all of this fake content so we don't know what is real or not and to not trust any of it. I'm sure you've also seen bots in comments that are always seeming to try and create chaos, especially on political videos. There's always weird accounts that are like trying to be weird, and it's kind of crazy. Neptune and Pisces energy also reminds me of another video I watched on Vice recently, where there was this anonymous person talking about those vacations where you pay and you're gonna go help build a school for children in Africa, or you're going to go teach them English or something. And it's like is it really mission work? I don't think it's mission work. I think it's just like a little vacay. And she was saying how in her experience, like they were building a school, and that one morning she woke up early and she saw that the local builders were undoing all the work that they had did building this school, and they were redoing it in the middle of the night so no one could see. And then the next day they would go do more work on the house, and they didn't even realize that their crappy work was undone. And she told this to her like supervisor or whatever, or chaperone, and she was like, okay, yeah, just don't mention that. Don't talk about that. And then the same thing where these group of students were supposed to teach these children English when really they're not qualified to teach children, especially a foreign language. And it's just a scam. It's just something that people do to make themselves feel better about themselves and to feel like, oh my God, look, I helped these people. Or it's something to put on like your college application. It's this facade, and I think it goes with the Neptune and Pisces energy, where it's just delulu. So Neptune and Aries is like a snap back to reality after years of delusion. It is a new beginning, as Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and Aries, like we said, is associated with the god of war. Aries is the god of war. There is anger after being asleep and cloudy for so long. Realizations about how we've been deceived in this fog. Deception is coming to the surface, and it is angry. This type of energy in the past has been associated with uprising and war. There is a need to take the spiritual wisdom that we have gained from the Neptune and Pisces transit and channel it into a new cycle. We are taking action after collective spiritual awakenings and integrating wisdom to facilitate change. Unfortunately, there are some people who are fanatics about their delusional causes and will use this Aries energy to embrace those delusions and channel it into a violent way. These types of people will target people that they feel are against them, which are often marginalized groups based off of race, religion, sexual orientation, or immigration status. Or children, as in the US, we have a problem with people shooting up schools. So there are also people who cling to these Neptunian beliefs and then they try to project those onto the rest of the world, especially in the realm of the government. There are people who try to use the Bible as the foundation of the government, and it is just not ethical. It is leaning too far into delusion to think that your own personal religious ideology is what the rest of the country should follow. They cling to their beliefs without actually realizing how these certain policies based off the religion could actually be impacting people. Or they are purposely trying to push policies that will destabilize the country even more, harm people, and make them even more dependent on the government for survival. Religion for a while now has been a means of controlling the population, where a lot of its spiritual wisdom is lost in translation. So, the last time Neptune was in Aries was 1861 to 1875, and coincidentally, that is when the American Civil War started. Interestingly enough, literally, the day that they attacked Fort Sumter, which is when it began, the Civil War, was literally like the day after Neptune went into Aries. It was literally like the same day, the day after, the day before or something, which is kind of crazy. Obviously, that particular attack was planned before then, but it's interesting that it fell on that day. Now, you don't need to know anything about astrology to know that things have been very spicy in the world, but in the US, especially lately, as tensions are growing. As tensions are getting higher, the cost of living keeps going up. The government keeps giving tax cuts to the wealthiest people in the country while cutting healthcare for the people who can't afford it. Every day, it is something new on the news where it's making it harder to get Medicare, Social Security, disability, and food stamps. This is a climate that breeds social unrest until great change takes place. More people are coming out of their delusions and realizing just how corrupt the government has become, how it is unfair, undemocratic, and a rigged system that is in fact not for the people. So, back in 1861, like I said, the Confederates attacked Fort Sumter because they felt they were losing power and economic stability by the push to outlaw slavery. The South had built their entire livelihood around slavery, and they did not want to give it up, even though it had become clear it was not an ethical way of doing things. They felt their rights were being infringed upon, but really they were resisting the push to a more evolved society. What themes are repeating here that we've seen before in history? That's a big focus of astrology, to look at the past patterns, look at the future transits coming up, and see what correlations are happening, what patterns are repeating, and how can we choose the higher version of these planets and these transits to continue evolving. And if we don't, it's gonna bite us in the ass. Neptune in Aries is bringing the desire for freedom from oppressive forces and to be in control of our own narrative, our own autonomy, and to feel like we actually have choices instead of simply working to survive. This energy creates motivation for change to fix the faulty systems of society that are keeping us trapped. We want a new beginning and we want to take our power back, and that is why this energy coincided with the last Civil War. Now, this energy isn't just for the people who are feeling exploited. Of course, the people who are currently in power are using it to maintain control. This transit also seems to coincide with the government cutting back all of these programs that people need to survive. Without these programs, many people are going to become homeless, they can't afford food, healthcare, and some will die. Maybe many, as a result of these decisions. This is kind of forcing an independence on people, which coincides with Aries energy. Part of the supposed benefit of tariffs is to reduce our dependence on imports from other countries and to instead push us to produce more goods in the United States. However, to truly actually do that, it is going to take years or decades to set up that infrastructure. This again is coinciding with this desire for independence, but in a way that is harmful for its citizens and driving all the prices up. Aries is also associated with the military, and I wonder if this transit will bring an inner turmoil in the military if the soldiers disagree with what they're ordered to do. Similar to how the last Neptune and Aries transit brought about major division. We are seeing now how Trump keeps wanting to push the National Guard to go to American cities and to use full force if necessary. If he keeps up with this and the other checks and balances of the government allow him to do this, how long will the soldiers go along with that? Turning on their own friends, family, and community. Obviously, if there decided to be a resistance to orders, there would be major consequences. I know that the point of the military is to break you so that you don't want to disobey them. But we are in major times of change. I think that would really test one's convictions if you are ordering them to attack their own people. The North Node has also been in Pisces since January 12th of this year, 2025, and this has also added another dreamy confusion to the collective. We are seeing these same Neptunian themes coming up regarding balancing what is practical, which is the Virgo South Node, and what is spiritual, which is the Pisces North Node. The higher chakra centers are related more to the spiritual realm, while the lower chakra centers are related more to the physical realm. When we have activation of the higher chakras and not the lower ones, this creates a lack of grounding and detachment from reality and the physical plane, leading to delusional beliefs and mindsets. The reverse is also true. Too much focus on the physical world and you lose the wisdom of the higher realms and the connection to the heart chakra, which is love, essentially, empathy. If you get too consumed with money and greed, then you are more likely to push to get it in more unethical ways, including exploitation. And so obsessing with those physical realms, those lower chakras, are going to disconnect you from the heart chakra. With the Pisces North Node, we are moving forward right now, but with a lot of uncertainty for the future. This is feeling lost while trying to trust the process. Virgo is also associated with control issues, and there is a need to not try to figure out things and leave some room for uncertainty. This energy is very cloudy, and the more you try to cling to what you think is real, the more confusing it seems. With this transit runs the risk of, like we said before, delusion, lack of grounding, drug use, and escapism. But on the higher octave, you can transmute it, and it can lead to artistic breakthroughs, compassion, and spiritual enlightenment. A new artistic expression has emerged during this Neptune and Pisces transit that a lot of people are fond of, and those are those ASMR videos, especially the ones with people squishing the sand and breaking things. I think that's very Pisces coded and definitely a way of distracting oneself and escaping reality. That trend might die out at some point as people realize that they're wasting so much time just watching these sand videos. The concept of content creation really has exploded and transformed during the transit of Neptune and Pisces, coinciding with the advancement of technology and social media. This has created a whole new field and way for people to make money, but also increases the need for good marketing. You need to be able to capture the attention of viewers very quickly or you will be missed. Art is more readily available to be searched and purchased, but again, if you don't have good marketing or content to represent your art, then you won't do as well. With the North Node in Pisces and Neptune in Aries, hopefully we can fight for the rights of the marginalized people. I see this being a big part of the major division going on in the country, not just with people of different race and ethnicity, but also of monetary class. Lately, many people are struggling financially, and financial instability and lack of hope for a better future creates even more fuel for fighting back against an oppressive system set up for only the wealthy to keep getting wealthier. There's also been a lot of fear-mongering on the internet with all kinds of information. One field I have personally seen this in is with these online tarot readers. And don't get me wrong, I love an online tarot reader, but some of them are really just feeding into your delusions. Some of them are really good, but a lot of them are just keep saying like, oh my god, your ex is coming back, the love of your life is coming, you know, this and that, and they're not saying a whole lot, and they get people, they get them, they suck them in. I do think we will see a decline in this type of content as Neptune moves into Aries and eventually North Node moves out of Pisces. I'm expecting a lot of social media influencers or people online that are relying on exploitation or lack of authentic material. Their motives will be revealed and not favored as much in the coming future. Part of the evolution of consciousness is recognizing the things about a society that don't work anymore and that are no longer in alignment and need to be shifted. This creates a very unique time period that we're in right now, where big cultural and societal shifts are more possible because there are many more people awakening, and they are more likely to not be afraid to stand up for the things that are wrong and challenge these problematic systems. I think Neptune and Aries will continue to bring about intense direct action and great change, even if it's painful. The unfortunate reality is that things will probably have to get very uncomfortable for great change. If most people weren't so uncomfortable, then we wouldn't be so motivated to do so. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Lily.